Hello, and welcome to Let's Play Nioh, Episode 2, The Isle of Demons. For the vote on what would be the secondary weapon I would be picking, the Kusarigama won. It's not the weapon I'm the best with, but every now and then I'll pull it out and show it off. I'll also try to show off other weapons when I get the chance. These are guardian spirits. I'll get into more about them later. Welcome to the Island of Demons. This is where I feel the game really begins. Selecting abilities relating to my key pulse. Being able to key pulse while dodging is what I'm going to go for early on. Shrines, they allow you to level up, they allow you to do online play, summoning another player, they allow you to get blessings from the Kawadama. They also let you change your guardian spirit when you have more than one. Despite the lack of shields, in Nioh, blocking is still pretty useful. You want to be careful because of course, getting hit while blocking lowers your ki gauge. When that empties, you'll be stunned, and enemies can get a free hit in on you that is a critical hit. Often that'll spell the end for you. Similar to bloodstains from the Dark Souls series, when someone dies, they leave behind a sword with blood around it in the ground. There are NPC ones and player ones. NPC and player ones can drop gear. They're a little bit annoying to fight because they often just guard after you're first hit on them. Now let's ignore how weirdly I just said them. Early on, enemies aren't too much of a challenge. You can kind of just swing at them endlessly. Don't let that lower your guard too much, though. Because in Nioh, it's very easy to die. It can take just a few hits to kill you. Something I've also learned, and that is thanks to Arcane Black, is that you deal more damage from behind in Nioh. I've played the entire game without knowing that. I just happen to position behind enemies often, because it's a good spot to be. For any wanting to hear puppy noises, they're with me today, but they're currently asleep. We'll see if they stir at all during the recording. But as I was saying a bit ago about hitting enemies from behind, you can backstab enemies if you sneak up on them and have the skill required to do so. It gives you a critical hit that deals a lot of damage. On larger enemies, you don't get them in an animation, but for human-sized enemies, you do. And there is our Kusarigama. I toy around with it a little bit right here. In Nioh, you have strong attacks and light attacks. The light attacks with the Kusarigama often use the weight, while the strong attacks use the sickle. You'll want to switch that up often, and allow you to focus on whether or not you're dealing with a single target or multiple targets at once. The sword is a bit more straightforward. You'll get more horizontal swings with your light attacks, and you'll get more thrusts and stabs with your strong attacks. I'm a big fan of light attack instead of strong attack. I just prefer swiftness most often in this game. Sometimes enemies can have kind of a bit of health. It's not too bad, and as you go on, you'll just get stronger and stronger and deal enough damage to work through it. But again, early on, it can be a little bit frustrating. Up that path over there are 3 enemies to fight at once. I remember during the demo, that killed a ton of people, and even when the game was first coming out, just fighting 3 enemies at once is quite a chore. Now, with how weapons work, they work for enemies in a very similar fashion. If the enemy is out of key and you hit them, or you knock them down, you get a critical hit on them. They do the same to you if you run out of key and take a hit. Another thing to consider is what weapon your enemy is wielding. Spears have a range advantage. Dual swords are fast. The Kusarigama has range and is fast, but doesn't hit too hard. The sword is intermediate, it's average in the middle. And then if you see an axe, be wary. The axe is slower, but hits really hard. If you see an enemy with an axe, they can almost one-shot you most of the time. Especially if they're a yokai. Now, we start out in the Kyushu region in southwestern Japan. During this time period, Japan is mostly split up between the east and the west. We'll see more as we go on, but there is a divide between the western and eastern armies as they're fighting over who gets to be the heir to Hideyoshi Toyotomi, who was the previous leader of Japan who perished, well, died. Hideyoshi himself was sort of heir to Oda Nobunaga. Already, I'm probably going to be saying these in reverse order because I'm used to certain names one way and certain names the other way. In Japanese, your name actually comes second and your surname is first. Which in English is the reverse. First name, last name. It's pretty simple, and I would say it's not too hard to remember. I just screw it up sometimes. But yes, this takes place after the death of Oda Nobunaga, the Demon of Owari, one of the great uniters, the first. You can see more about him in my Nobunaga's Ambition series. A little bit of plugging there, I can't help it. Also, spoilers for that series, if you're watching this, I'm going to talk a little bit about him. See, Nobunaga was betrayed by Mitsuhide Akechi. Akechi took his army, and instead of marching where Nobunaga had ordered him to, he marched on... which was it? The temple, I believe it was, that Nobunaga was at. Was it a temple or a castle? Now I'm forgetting. That would be easy to look up, but right now I'm in the middle of recording. But in either case, it was burned down and Nobunaga took his own life, allegedly. Whether he was killed or took his own life, I think there is some little bit of dispute. But in either case, that was the end of Nobunaga. So after that, there was a power vacuum, and Hideyoshi Toyotomi, who was at the time Hideyoshi Hashiba, went on to go and fight Akechi and defeated him and his army, and the Akechi clan was taken out. With Oda Nobunaga's death, there wasn't a single leader left, so oddly enough, it ended up becoming a battle for Hideyoshi Hashiba to go over and take over the areas where Oda Nobunaga had previously ruled. Because of people like Toshimeda, Shibata Katsui, they broke away. There was also the Oda clan still left over. After conquering much of Japan and taking over Owari yet again and Nioh, Hideyoshi became the de facto leader. If I remember right, he was even sworn in by the emperor. And that is two of the great uniters of Japan. The third great uniter, Tokugawa Ieyasu, is featured prominently in this game. You will be seeing a lot of him and learning more about him and his personal struggles. So for now, I'll consider that spoilers for talking about Tokugawa Ieyasu and what happens. I got a little bit lost in the history talk. I forgot I was recording Nioh. Spears really frustrate me in this game because the enemies just always seem just at the tip of their range. And spears are pretty fast. Japanese spears are considered yari. That's their term for them. While we know Japan mainly for katana, their swords, the spear was actually a much more common weapon. You see that throughout history in most places, the spear was the most common weapon. Because of a sword, for instance, costs a lot more resources to make. You need all of that metal throughout the whole thing. A spear just needs whatever metal at the tip, and the rest can be wood. The spear is also an anti-cavalry weapon, which is very important to a lot of warfare. Here is a yokai. When you see that mist like that in an area you haven't gone through yet or seen a yokai like curse yet, that means there is a tough enemy that will spawn. If you kill it, it will not come back. So if you die and come back, or you save and come back at the shrine, they'll be gone forever. Yokai is a very general term for creatures in Japanese myth and folklore. They're generally spirits or demons, and they can be positive or negative or even neutral. In Nioh, yokai are generally evil. These things you see me pick up every now and then are called kodama. They inhabit the shrines. They give you blessings, and you can get stronger blessings the more that you have returned to the shrine. A bit of leveling up. Again, it's similar to Dark Souls. Body is your health. It also improves damage with spears. Heart is about your ki, which is your stamina. I may do a bit more of a rundown of the stats, but you have skill, you have dexterity, strength, spirit, magic, stamina, which is not your stamina, but how much you can have equipped armor-wise. Weapons in Nioh don't have a weight to them, but armor does. It'll determine how fast you move, how fast you regain stamina, and, of course, armor will determine how much damage you take. When you defeat one of these revenants that are summoned, you get glory. Glory is your PvP currency. Later on in the game, you can use it to buy character transformations, items, gestures. For human enemies, they have stances just like you. If you know the stances, you can then recognize what they're doing, how much damage they'll deal, the animations they'll be using as they attack. Generally, if you see something overhand, that means it's in high stance, and if it's underhand, it's in low stance. About even with the waist of the person being often medium stance or mid stance. For the most part, you'll be seeing me use mid stance. It's what I favor. With mid stance, it's in the middle. It's good for blocking. In low stance, your attacks don't deal quite as much damage, but they're much faster. And in high stance, your attacks kind of charge up, but deal more damage. Dodging is a bit harder in that because you do a roll when you're in high stance instead of just a dash. The armor I'm going to be using for this playthrough is most likely going to be medium armor, but I'll try to show off heavy and light armor along the way. I may even go on to other characters to show it off in action. You want to be very careful with these yokai that are summoned. These big ones right here, they hit like a truck. They can very easily catch you in a flurry and just one-shot you or chain stun you to death. If you see one with an axe, watch out. It will probably one-shot you with any of its hits. And right there, that was a grapple. Again, that hits really hard. With overhand attacks, sometimes you can cut it really close and allow them to get very near to your body without taking the hit. I play a bit risky like that. It often pays off for me. Sometimes it doesn't. I just get completely destroyed. So we had a bow. There are also guns in this game. Matchlock rifles and cannons. During the Sengoku period, matchlock weaponry and cannonry, did I just say cannonry? Artillery were brought to Japan. They first arrived on the island of Tanegashima, which is why they're often called Tanegashima rifles. In game, the way they work is they're ranged weapons. Ranged weapons, when they hit something in the head, deal quite a bit of damage. You can one-shot a lot of normal enemies by just shooting them in the head. If you shoot certain enemies in the head, you'll stun them and knock them down. The difference in ranged weaponry is that rifles deal more damage than bows, but they're louder and they're slower and attract enemies more easily. Bows are quiet, but don't deal quite as much damage. You'll also find that arrows are more common. There are also cannons that you can carry that are quite gigantic. They deal massive amounts of damage, but are very slow to set up. I'm a little bit surprised pistols are not an option. Certain enemies in the game do have pistols, and pistols existed at this time, but you don't find any. There's enough variety as is, though, so it's not a complaint, just something I would have liked to see. And as I said earlier, I hate fighting spears. Just so fast with so much range. The only time I like fighting people using spears are when I have a spear. Oh yeah, and NPC enemies taunt you after you die. How nice. But we get to see the grave in effect. When you die, your guardian spirit stays where you died, and as well as your Amrita that you've earned. if you can get back to it without dying, you recover it and the Guardian Spirit and all of the charge of the Guardian Spirit for the living weapon. As well as your Amrita. When the Amrita memories are playing and we're listening into people talking, I'll try to be quiet myself. Even though most of you who are going to be watching this, I don't think can speak or understand Japanese at all. But they're nice to listen to anyway. I don't know how well this game is translated myself. It seems well done, but again, I don't speak Japanese. Nor do I read it or write it. Well, I don't write in kanji. And time for a plunging attack. Plunging attacks deal quite a lot of damage when you land on someone. So, a little bit about mobility in this game. In the Dark Souls series, you're known mostly for rolling. Bloodborne, you had a quick step. In Nioh, you have a dash/quick step, and you can roll. In regards to how realistic it is, in Nioh, it's ridiculously fast and long-reaching. But dashing, even in heavy armor, was still a thing. It was more of taking quick steps. Dodging was not about rolling around on the battlefield, but in armor you could do it if you wanted. You just look a bit silly doing it, but you can. Alright, and a shortcut right back to the shrine. The skill I'm learning right now is one of my favorites. When you dodge, you can key pulse. It's automatic, so if you have any... I don't know how to describe this. Part of the bar, when you can key pulse, is a different color. The closer to when it's at maximum that you do it, the more ki/stamina you get back. So in this way, instead of having to stand still or just while moving key pulse, I can dodge, and the dodge key pulses itself. So this spot is a little bit dangerous. In general, you don't want to fight in confined spaces in the game. Enemies can have their attacks interrupted by hitting the environment, but it's a lot easier for you to get interrupted from hitting the environment. If you're backed into a corner, you can also get very easily stun-locked and killed. The dodging is majorly important in Nioh. So what armor you can wear is depending on certain stats. Each bit of armor will have different requirements, such as skill, strength, stamina, heart, body. No, not heart. I don't think heart has any requirement for armor, but body does.
These barbarians, they're turning into monsters.
What you see here are Shinto gates. Oh look, it's the director of the game. He's not really a tough fight, but it was worth it for a new sword. Now, though, we are on our way to the boss of this level. I hope you're ready for our first real boss.
It was supposed to be an easy job for easy money.
Say hello to Onryoki. Onryoki is not too tough. He's mostly slow. I would say his deadliest attack is that one right there where he just swings around the chains. It can be a little bit hard to dodge through, and guarding it, you'll have your guard broken. You're going to see me screw up a few times because I haven't actually done this fight in a little while. I probably should have practiced him more, rather than none at all. He does hit very hard. Even in heavy armor, you'll find this boss can hit you extremely hard. For the most part, you want to stay behind him. Don't do more than 3 attacks in a row. Usually any more than that and you're getting greedy and he's going to turn around and hit you. He has a lot of very quick little swipes. They don't deal as much damage. They hit pretty hard. In his second phase, he is more likely to one-shot you with his attacks, but I find that he's actually much easier than his first phase. Every now and then he'll throw his gigantic, like, ball and chain balls at you, but they're very easy to dodge. I got him a little bit stuck right here and doing it over and over again. You want to watch out for his grapples and his attacks where he charges up or his combos. They will destroy you. And a little living weapon to finish him off. The living weapon is your guardian spirit taking on form with your weapon. It'll, instead of having health and stamina, you have the living weapon gauge. When that empties, it's over. Any damage you take lowers that. On top of that, your living weapon will have an elemental damage type. For instance, mine has wind. When you activate it too, your living weapon coming out, your guardian spirit coming out, does deal damage to anything that's standing next to you or right in front of you. But that was Onryoki.
are you?
A foreigner? Your skill against Oni is impressive.
As is your skill with English.
My name is Hanzo Hattori. And you are?
Call me William. I'm here in pursuit of someone.
An enemy, perhaps? Hunting a person down in a strange land will not be easy. If you lend me your strength in fighting Oni, I will help you in return. Well then. Dawn is breaking. Come.天下人であった太閤秀吉様が亡くなり、この国では今二人の侍が歯を競っておる。一人は秀吉様を継いだ石田三成殿、もう一人は我が主君徳川家康様。わしは家康様から西国大名たちの調略を任され、この九州へ参ったのだ。ウィリアム、近頃巷には地味猛量が出没し、大名たちは手を焼いておる。鬼を切るその腕を売り込めば調略の好機となろう。案ずるな。あやかし騒ぎを追えばお主の仇も現れよう。まずは家康様に近しい隣国豊前の官兵衛殿のもとに参ろう。